Hey guys, Matt LaRosier here with Firearms Policy Coalition, bringing you another weekly update, just to make sure you have all the latest information on everything affecting your right to keep and bear arms. First up, the big news. Appeals Court rules on California mag ban. You've probably heard about this from one place or another, but I'd be remiss not to talk about it here. You guys remember Freedom Week, right? Where the good Judge Benitez slapped down California's ban on high-capacity magazines. Well, that decision got to a panel in the Ninth Circuit this week who agreed with the court below that the mag ban massively violates the Second Amendment under either level of scrutiny that the parties argued to apply. Now, don't get too excited. For the moment, the ban is still partially in effect and will be unless the district court issues an order lifting its stay of the judgment. We'll be keeping an eye on this for sure. Now, the major theme for the rest of this episode is going to be gun permits and why they're a terrible idea. So, next up, Santa Clara carry scandal. This week we have a criminal case coming out of Santa Clara County, California, where a county police captain and some political supporters of the county sheriff are facing bribery and conspiracy charges. According to the district attorney, these individuals were involved in a pay-to-play scandal involving concealed carry permits. Basically, the allegation is there were two carry permit systems, one for us plebs, where our application winds up in the circular file, and one for well-connected people with cash. Now, gun permitting is generally a bad idea, but it's especially bad when the people running it have both discretion and perverse incentives. Speaking of perverse incentives, NYPD Commissioner, carrying is criminal. Dermot Shea, the department's commissioner, had some harsh words for people who carry guns earlier this week. According to Shea, there's going to be three things for them, and those are swift, certain punishment. Now that's really confusing for a few reasons. One, because that's not actually three things, and two, because carrying itself isn't a crime. I guess it tells you a little more about the NYPD's mentality when it comes to guns. If you've got one, you're a criminal unless you're a cop. Now, there are at least 50,000 handgun license holders in the city of New York, which is 14,000 more than the current number of police officers on the job. This is despite the NYPD licensing division's best efforts to deny regular gun permit applicants. You know, the ones who couldn't afford to pay their way through. Over in Worcester, Massachusetts, call for help, get charged. A man learned earlier this week that despite the government's promise to look out for our best interest, sometimes using government services has some really heavy hidden costs. In need of medical attention, this individual called for an ambulance, and when the paramedics arrived, they reported him to the police because they noticed he had a handgun. When police arrived, they did some digging, poking around, found out the man didn't have a permit, so they charged him with a crime that could land him in prison for 18 months. The problem with these kinds of situations going forward is that it will disincentivize people from calling for help when they need it. If Massachusetts wanted to actually save lives, maybe they would ditch the permit requirement first. Now, last but not least on our list of reprobate policymakers, the ABA hates gun owners. The American Bar Association, a group of pushy lawyers, has just signed off on a resolution calling for more gun control. The ABA wants universal background checks, in-person applications, fingerprinting, and a background and criminal records check, both. Now, none of this makes any sense. We've established time and time again that background checks don't stop criminals from buying guns, but that they do tend to deny or delay people from exercising their right to keep and bear arms. Fingerprint requirements imply that individuals buying guns are de facto criminals, which contradicts the fundamental principles of our justice system. In other words, the ABA wants you to prove that you're not a criminal before you can exercise your fundamental human right. Now, in-person applications are likewise improper and unnecessary. They're only meant to bias and put hurdles in front of potential gun owners. They're encouraging discrimination by compelling this type of stuff, especially in times like the current pandemic, when they can simply file the application by mail or online instead. Safety first, I guess? The ABA's policies are based on bad faith arguments that are only really intended to create burdens on our constitutional fundamental rights. Just like their membership rolls, politicians would do well to decline any gun control proposals by the ABA. Now, in research news, study links gun buying to fear of regulation. Researchers at NYU have confirmed what you already know if you've been a gun owner for more than a couple days. Whenever there's an anti-gun candidate proposing anti-gun legislation, gun sales tend to go up. Oh, wow. It gets better. Undoubtedly inspired by the quality research conducted by this team, the National Science Fund has decided to grant this group $2 million to continue their research into cause and effects for gun purchases. Finally, in Missouri, the Missouri Senate passes an age ban. State Senate has passed Senate Bill 1, which will negatively impact young people and their right to bear arms. If this bill is signed into law, children as young as 14 may be subjected to hearings to determine whether or not they should be tried as adults for any gun violation. Seems unnecessary since they can already be tried as adults for actual violent crimes. The other suspect thing about this is that minority youths in Missouri are already disproportionately prosecuted as adults. Somewhere in the realm of like 80% of the time. Not a good look. Another part of the bill will make it a felony for someone to loan a firearm to someone under the age of 18 without their parent or guardian's express consent. Now that doesn't seem like a big deal at first, right? But you can imagine situations like some kid's uncle handing him a .22, shooting cans in the backyard. That could mean trouble for an otherwise wholesome time. Let's hope the legislature gets some sense and they'll shoot down this bill before it reaches the governor. Well, that's all I've got for you this week, guys. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to know more, check out fpcnews.org, where you can find this week's edition and information on our legal and legislative efforts. If you think this content would be important to anyone you know, help us spread the word and tag them in the comments. Also, be sure to check out fpcgear.com, where you can get all kinds of cool Pro 2A gear like this shirt and help keep us in the fight in the process. As always, keep your eyes on Firearms Policy Coalition, where we're keeping up the fight for all of your rights all the time. I've been Matt LaRosiere, and I'll see you real soon.